We have with us here a guy that I've listened to for a long time, discovered here thanks to Radio U several years ago when he was with Graceful Closure. Now he's got a brand new song out called Can You Hear Me? Jared Marc, welcome to the show.
What's up, guys? How are we doing?
Good.
We're awesome, Jared. It's good to see you again.
Dude, thanks for having me. It's an honor.
Yeah, it's an honor to talk to you. Jared, we've spoken a few times in the past, and as long as I've known you, there's one thing that I know to be true about you, and that is you are a coffee aficionado.
This is true. It is still that way, man.
Now, you don't know this because Aly is brand new here. Aly doesn't drink coffee. Now, it's none of my business if she likes coffee or not. But from a coffee aficionado like yourself, if we were trying to convince Aly to drink coffee, how would you go about it?
Man, okay, so Aly, you don't like coffee at all, or you like kind of like it, or like you just never really drink it because you don't care. You like the smell,
Aly,
hate the taste.
You didn't know this, but you're being interviewed.
Yeah, I mean, I got to put together a plan, you know, like you got to put together a proper plan.
Yeah, so you got to diagnose, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I really don't like the flavor of most coffee, but I will say, like, I haven't tried a lot of like the coffees that have like things added in to make them like taste super sugary or whatever. So
sure. Do you like sugary things?
I mean, I do drink like some sugary drinks.
She
for
drinks
sure.
Coke all the time.
I do drink Coca-Cola sometimes, yeah. But
okay, here's your plan. Here's your health plan. You start with a drink that doesn't really have coffee in it. So like a Frappuccino from Starbucks that's like Frappuccinos at Starbucks. Yeah, they use like coffee powder or whatever. You go there and then you ask them to throw like a shot of espresso in it after you've done that a couple times. And then it's like you barely taste it, but it's kind of in there. And then it's like, oh, I want 2 shots in that now. And then you're like, hey, can I have like less flavoring? And then you move to like a honey latte or something. And then eventually you get the honey out and now it's just milk and espresso. And then you try a really good pour over, natural process or anaerobic process. My coffee nerds know exactly what I'm talking about. And then there's like all these fruit elements that start to pop in the coffee and it's just black at that point. And that's how you become a coffee addict. It's really great.
All right. I have the roadmap now.
Today is the first day of the rest of your life.
It is. But dude, I have 3 kids now, and I will say, like, great coffee, like, as much as I value it, I've pulled out the Keurig a few times lately.
Oh, yeah.
Because, you know, it's just kind of like, well, life is crazy.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Listen, we wake up at like 4 a.m, so you don't have time to be picky about coffee that early.
Yeah.
That's great.
I'm flexible these days.
Well, I'm going to switch the conversation from coffee to music. And one of my favorite questions to ask the artist, Jared, is I love to ask people, because I know the thing that I'm interested in is the music that you love. So I want to know if you could have written any song that exists, what would it be and why?
Oh, shoot, that's tough. Okay, this might become like a surprise to you. Well, 2 things. There are 2 bands specifically that I actually don't really make music that sounds like them, but so I'm a producer. I'm an artist, but like I find myself in the producer role a lot these days, and mixing songs and like creating the production. And so my mind is like very focused on like sounds. I'm like really fascinated by sounds. And so 2 artists, and we can pull out specific songs from these 2 artists, but they specifically like kind of like made my brain just, you know, when I first heard it was the Viva La Vida record by Coldplay. When I heard the orchestrations of that, the guitar tones of that, just like this sounds really nerdy, but like the depth of the mixes, I was just like, holy cow. And it's kind of crazy, but like Michael Brower mixed that record, and he's like a legend mixing engineer. And I reached out to him in the Graceful Closure days, and I just asked if I could hop on the phone and pick his brain, and he said yes. Wow. And I hopped on I hopped on the phone with him and we talked through like mixing techniques and stuff. And like I was nobody and bro just took the time to like talk to me. He did like John Mayer stuff. Like he's mixed tons of great records and he just talked to me and it was really cool. And we just talked about like compressors and a bunch of nerdy stuff. And so that record means a lot. And just honestly, that song in general is really cool. Lovers in Japan is like really cool sonically too. And then the band, not near as popular, but Copeland. I don't know if you're familiar with Copeland.
Yeah, we played some Copeland here before.
Yeah, dude. So like those songs, man, like something about his voice and the way he layers his voice is incredible. And so the album, I guess it's not a song, but the album You Are My Sunshine, dude, like I put that thing on and it just takes me to a place. And there's something about that record that will just always be a favorite for me, like sonically, like how mellow it is. You know, it's a favorite, but I could also fall asleep to it, if that makes sense. Like I just put it on it and I'm just like gone, you know? But yeah, I don't know if that helps answer your question, but I would have been really glad to be in the room on any of those sessions for sure.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's so interesting to hear. But enough about other artists. Let's talk about you, Jared. You just put out a new song called Can You Hear Me? We are adding it to Radio U today. And what I want to know is just give me the story of the song. What should people know if they haven't heard the song yet? What should they know going into it?
Oh, man. Can You Hear Me is actually like one of the most intimate things I've ever created. You might not even get it by listening to it. I mean, I think you can hear like the desperation in the song, at least I hope. But a little backstory, Hudson, because it's been a while since you and I have talked, but so as Graceful Closure was ending and I started moving into like Jared Marc as a solo thing, during that time, I had 3 Great Danes. Crazy. I don't recommend having 3 extra large breed dogs all at the same time. But I was walking them one day and this little sweet girl, like I didn't have kids at the time, this little girl comes out and she sees the dog. She's really excited. She starts running towards them and screaming and like in excitement, you know, my dogs freak out and start running towards her. And like, that's scary because they've never met kids before. And I'm like, oh, great. I'm about to kill a child. Like this is tough, you know? And so like I grabbed them and they just drug me. And thankfully they just got all the way up to her face and they're like, and like everything was good except my body. Like I got, it was rough, man. So like I got up and like my finger right here, it's still pretty jacked up, but it was huge. And like I had one of those like wedding rings that you can't really cut off. And so like I had to like rip it off before my finger got any bigger. And it was a wild thing. And it led me, like my elbows got huge and a year went by and like I was still huge. Like all my joints were still majorly swollen. And I started going to doctors and trying to figure out what's going on. No one could figure out what was going on. And you know, we had gotten pregnant during this time. We had a miscarriage and lost our first baby, which was pretty traumatic. Like, it was not super fun to say the least. And to take it like a step worse, like our best friends had gotten pregnant during that time too. And then they announced their due date and it was the same due date of the baby we lost.
Oh, no.
So it was like, God, what is going on? You know, like that's kind of weird. And so we're like celebrating our friends, but they knew we lost the baby, but they didn't know the due date. And so it was like a pretty serious time. And I'm not trying to bring light to it. I'm just trying to explain the song. But like, it was kind of a time where like my body was so jacked up. It got to the point where I physically couldn't walk. So like my body was so locked up. My wife would pull me out of bed. I went through like 3 months where I would sleep sitting straight up. Because if I laid down and my body locked in the middle of the night, I actually couldn't like bend upwards to get out of bed. And obviously I'm a grown man, so it's not like super easy for your wife just to pull you out of bed and be like, all right, get up, bud, let's go to work, you know, that kind of thing. And so it just was wild. And finally, like it got so, honestly, the times got so low where I remember telling my wife, like, I just had such a perspective on like addicts and people who don't want to live. Like, and I was never like that person, but I just told her, I was like, man, if someone offered me something on the street to get rid of my pain, I think I would take it. And I think I understand how people get to such a low place. And thank God that did not happen to me. And in that moment, I freaked her out to the point to where she's in the medical field and she went to everyone she knew. And she finally found me a doctor and they ended up, it was kind of weird because it didn't show up in my blood, but they're like, you have arthritis arthritis and you have it from your neck to your toes. And so they got me on a shot, and I still take it to this day every other week. And it basically like tells my body what it's supposed to be doing because it's naturally not doing that. And it's called like a biological. And that sent me through like this spiral, because like I was sitting in this doctor office with a bunch of people that are like 80 years old, and I'm like, at the time I'm like 29 or something like that, and I'm just sitting there like, man, like, God, like this does not seem like it's supposed to be my life, you know what I mean? Like, what's happening right now? You know, what's my future look like? Like, I know side effects are cancer and things like that, so like my mind's just going to bad places automatically. And so it just went through this like time of like low lows, if that makes sense. And I stopped really writing music for me in that season, and I went into writing songs that I kind of call like facade songs, like and I have them out, but they're like feel good songs, fun songs, and that's not how I felt at all. It was like this, like how I wanted to feel, basically. But it wasn't how I felt. And so I just kind of ignored anything personal. Like I didn't want to talk about it, to be honest, because I didn't know how. Like, you know, it just felt too real. And so I finally started feeling better. I finally was able to like start walking and get back to normal life things. And we ended up having our first baby, which was awesome. And we now have 3, and our house is crazy, you know. And everything started like getting really good. And I got like, I've had some really cool like music opportunities that have come over the few years. And it just reached a point to where I was like, man, like my cognitively, like I was still so discouraged by like what my new life is like having to like take medicine, like constantly feeling this chronic pain. And it just takes the edge off and things like that. And finally, and I know there's a lot of taboo on the subject, but finally I started going to a counselor, because I was like, you know, like I've got 3 beautiful kids and they need a good, healthy dad. And so I'm going to go take care of myself so I can be everything they need me to be. And so I started seeing a counselor, and thankfully like was brought to just a great company, like person. And they just started helping me just dive into a lot of this. And I've been in it for a few months now. And I finally felt like I was like, you know what, I really need to start talking about some of this stuff that I've gone through. And in that moment, Can You Hear Me is like a cry out. Like it's definitely not like the healed song. Like it's not, there's no full healing yet. There's a part in the bridge where you see a glimpse of hope. And that's how I felt in that season. Like I'm a lot further down the road of healing now, and I have more songs that are coming that will kind of explain where I am now. But Can You Hear Me is like this was the start of the journey. It's like, hey, like, Lord, can you hear me? Like, what is going on? Like, I'm down here going through something, and I'm like trying to process what this is that I'm going through. And so it's really just like a desperate cry in that moment, in that season. And it was hard to release. I actually finished that song like a few months ago, and mixed, mastered, done, and it just sat on my hard drive. And I don't know why it was so hard to release, but it was like, I feel like the moment I release this, I have to start talking about all this publicly. Like we hadn't even talked about like the miscarriage really publicly. Like I hadn't talked about like a lot of the health stuff publicly. Very minimal like conversation have taken place about all that. Like I just kind of like internalized it, and close friends and family knew. But like, I think that was why it was so hard. It was like, if I release a song, I got to talk about it. And I finally just got to the place where I was like, no, I think I need to talk about it, because I think other people need this healing too. And so it just kind of came to a point where it's like, I need it, my family needs it, and I think others might need it. And so I was like, you know, I need to get over my insecurities, and I just need to release the song. And so that's kind of what came about. And I'm proud of it. I think it's kind of cool. It's a little moody for me, you know, but I'm glad I did it, and I'm glad it's out. So.
No, yeah, that is, as you told the story, that's what I was thinking. I was like, there's got to be somebody right now that's like gone through similar things, and hearing this song and everything, it's going to be very hopeful to them. So I appreciate you sharing all that with us.
Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah.
Well,
thanks for
all that.
adding it.
While you're here, you should watch more of our videos and subscribe so you don't miss what we do next.